If you forget to walk around and just sort of soak it in, particularly at a festival like South by, you're missing half of it.
100%.
It is not about just running from session to session. You can do that, don't get me wrong, but you'll be exhausted.
You will lose detail.
And also just sort of what you might stumble upon.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Ad Podcast, streaming you from the Line Hotel at beautiful South by Southwest here at the Red Thread Collective. And we have Lisa Rosenberg, who is the Global President of Consumer Brands at Allison Worldwide. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do, and what brought you to South by this year?
Sure. So I've been in the agency world for my entire career and always in the consumer space. So, my jam is brands and really from the marketing side.
I love it.
So I love coming to conferences and festivals like South by. I've been coming for many, many years.
To South by specifically?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Come for a few years, take a few years off, come for a few years.
That's been my vibe. I've been doing it for about 15, but it was always like every other year. And then none since COVID, first time back since COVID.
I was here last year, but when I first started at Allison, I've been at Allison 13 years.
Wow.
So a long time. They had never come as an agency.
Interesting.
And we wanted to come, and I convinced them, we were much smaller at the time, and I'm like...
Was this pre-Stagwell?
Yes,
way
pre-Stagwell. Yeah. And I was like, we should be at South by, and we should do something to put our name on the map. And... at the time, there was a chef in New York called Dominique Ansel who created the Cronut. And so we had the idea to bring him and the Cronut to South by,
fun.
Which was super fun. It had never been outside of New York City, and I will tell you, it required a lot of complicated,
I can only imagine.
like kitchen equipment. We were like flying in different, machines, and we set him up in the kitchen at the Intercontinental Hotel.
Wow.
Came in a few days early. And we had a party called the Cronut at midnight, and we had room for 200 people. We had 3,000 people sign up. It was a midnight party. But he decided he wanted to make a signature dessert just for being here in Austin. And so he created a concoction called the chocolate chip cookie milk shot.
Oh my goodness.
And it became a permanent part of his menu, but I literally watched him make the batter. I was tasting it in the kitchen. And you knew you had something really cool when, we got a phone call from Seth Meyers' people saying, I heard about this cookie milk shot. Could I come try it before you launch it?
Cool.
And so we had just hoped to be part of the conversation. And that year I did an analysis of volume of conversation. We actually dominated conversation at South by, second only to Justin Bieber getting in a bar fight.
Holy
so
cow.
that was the year you had Grumpy Cat and Oreo 3D printing, but yet everyone was talking
Was
about
that the year that Bill Murray showed up and just popped into random parties? Do you remember that year?
I do remember that year. I don't think that was the same year, but I was really proud that we sort of put ourselves on the map, and it was a fun moment for Allison and a fun moment for Dominique, and then I've been here. We came a couple years in a row, and then I think the festival took a little bit of a different turn, and then you had COVID, and I didn't come for a couple years, and I came last year, and last year was great. We actually did a whole series of partner programming here. We owned the sports stage, which was really fun. And I like going to shows like South by and like Cannes because you get inspired.
Yeah, totally.
What do you see? Where's the conversation going? Where's the narrative trending? What does that mean for our business? Where is it going to go next? And so this year I actually put in for a proper panel at South by. I distinctly remember being on a plane writing a treatise, this is what I want to talk about, and finding my panelists. And I study culture and how brands show up in culture and what cultural relevance means in terms of driving brand success. And I've seen sort of the evolution of the narrative, and I really wanted to lean in on this notion of community and really sort of unpack how brands can't just build community. No. They need to earn it.
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
Sometimes rent it in ways that are authentic, right?
But really, how can brands authentically belong to community, and what does that then mean in terms of their staying power? And so that was really the premise of the panel that I just moderated actually a few minutes ago, which was
You
awesome.
Still have a little bit of high coming off that one.
It was a great session. I had amazing panelists. I had Marcus Collins, who's a professor at
I've seen
Michigan.
Marcus speak many times.
He's
like
great. Watching Marcus speak is like a master class in like everything.
Yeah,
he's amazing.
Prolific.
And I had Patrick O'Keefe from Elf Beauty, who is awesome.
I've seen Patrick before.
And then Anne Salerno from Dexcom.
Yeah.
And Dexcom is really unique in that they have, they're a continuous glucose monitoring system.
Oh, right. That's
they
where
have
I was thinking of.
They have like 35,000 warriors who are part of their community who want to speak up and speak out about the brand and sort of really the life-changing technology
how
and
it's
what
totally
it enables them to do.
revolutionized their lives to not have to go and prick fingers and do all that
like
stuff.
all that stuff. And so each one of them brought a really unique lens to the conversation. If you think about, how community is made, you have to look at identity, you have to look at participation, you have to look at trust. So we had a great conversation this morning. And so that was one of the key reasons I was here, because I was talking.
Yeah, so good.
And I did a session on Friday over at Brand Innovators, which was terrific, with Cheryl Guerin from MasterCard, and she'd been at MasterCard for 25 years.
Wow.
So we were talking about really how do you build a brand over time, not just for quarters, but for decades.
Yeah.
And so it was a really
Lasting
lasting power, durability of a brand, stewardship of a brand, and also how does your leadership style evolve? So I love to come, and I do like speaking, so that's really fun, but I also like listening.
Totally.
And I think listening is a big piece, listening and observing, because if you forget to walk around and just sort of soak it in, particularly at a festival like South by, you're missing half of it.
100%.
It is not about just running from session to session. You can do that, don't get me wrong, but you'll be exhausted.
You will lose detail.
And also just sort of what you might stumble upon.
Yeah, you got to leave some room for kismet. You got to have a little bit of white space, right?
Some of your best conversations and the people you meet happen online, waiting for something, or on an airplane, someone you're sitting next to. Yeah. I went to a reception last night, which I actually thought was really nice of South by to organize. It was for speakers, and on top of the Rivian Roadhouse, which is a beautiful space. I was there last year, and it was really cool. And as I was thinking about how I was meeting people, I'm like, well, this is like the easiest networking event ever, because everyone was a speaker. So it's like, oh, what's your topic on? What are you speaking on? So great opening line. There was one guy who I met, and he was talking about putting things on the moon.
Wow.
So first he's putting a statue, then a bigger statue, and ultimately he wanted to build a community on the moon. And I'm like, okay, I'm in marketing. I feel really subpar here. I was like, oh, but it was. It's just fascinating. So the different people you meet, and the fact that you can be in an environment where you're having the opportunity to talk to people who are bringing innovation from multiple different lenses. So it's not just, South by is unique. It's not just a marketing conference. It's
100%.
really
it's a true community.
So you've got innovation, you've got music, you've got film. My favorite session that I did go to was I saw Larry David, so I'm a big Larry David fan.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And he was so funny. He has a new show coming out on HBO. I believe the name is Life, Larry and the Pursuit of Unhappiness, a short history of the United States. And it's hilarious. But my favorite line, my favorite moment was he was doing Q&A, and in his session you had to type in your questions, and then the moderator was like, please stand up when we read your question or your name. And so the very first question was from a woman in the audience, and she said, Larry, can you tell me what's the appropriate distance someone can be standing before you close the elevator door on their face? Hilarious. And he's like, oh my God, this is the best question. And it's so in keeping with his humor. And it was a good question, because it's been 3 days and it is still my top of mind story.
Ringing, yeah. It's interesting. I think you're right as far as South by. I had not been here for a long time, coming back for the first time post-COVID. I really do think this is my favorite conference, and I go to something most weeks. I think it's for the reasons that you talked about, really that idea of like, you just never know what's going to happen. And it's important to like keep your eyes out for like unsuspecting details. One year when I was here, I don't remember when it was, but I was just like sitting at a picnic table. I looked at the table and I saw a little bottle of hot sauce. It was unbranded and it just had a QR code. It just said feeling spicy, like scan this code. So I like scanned the code. It took me to Chase's Twitter profile. And
Chase Bank?
yes, Chase Bank, and it just said put in some like thing and use the hashtag for South by Southwest. I did it. 2 days later, I get a direct message from Chase. You've been selected for a private dinner for 10 people with Anthony Bourdain. Can you believe that?
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's great.
And could you imagine how many people walked right by that bottle of sauce, didn't look at it, didn't scan the QR code, just didn't care. And like I did, and I got this amazing experience because I was willing to not rush from session to session, just pay attention to the little details. And yeah, also I remember flying back from South by one year on Southwest Airlines, not the premium airline, sitting next to the chief marketing officer of Soylent. We had a nice conversation going home, and then they ended up becoming a client. Yeah, he became a client of mine as well. So just like the kismet of like who you meet, but I think also those little details of, the chat, like even the fact that you and I started this conversation yesterday on LinkedIn, and now we're sitting here having a conversation.
I love it.
Like, I think that's the magic of South by.
Well, and that is really, I think, the trick to attending a conference, to remember not to overschedule yourself. Mm-hmm. I see some people who, they are booked for morning till night with not even time to get from place to place. Mm-hmm. So then, your anxiety level, your stress level, and if it's hot, you're sweating. You've got to leave time, an unprogrammed time, mm-hmm. because you don't know when you're going to find magic. And that's, I think, what we all hope for.
Yeah, I love it. Well, if folks want to connect with you and follow along on your thinking or learn more about the agency, where would you like to send people?
Oh, they should go to LinkedIn and they should subscribe to my newsletter. I publish
beautiful.
Twice a week.
Let's go.
It's a newsletter called The Roar, and I write about culture and brands and marketing trends. And I welcome everyone to read and comment and share their own thoughts, because I like the idea of building community.
I love it. Well, we'll link to it in the show notes. Thank you so much for being open to a random interview, and we made it happen. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dylan.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.